When Jesus took his last breath on the cross, the sky above Jerusalem turned black in the middle of the afternoon. Not gradually, not slowly, but instantly, as if the sun itself refused to witness what had just happened. The ground beneath the city began to shake with a force that cracked stone walls and split the earth open. Inside the great temple, the massive curtain that separated ordinary men from the holiest place on earth tore from top to bottom. Not from the bottom up, as a man would tear it, but from the top down. Roman soldiers who had seen countless executions stood frozen, staring at the darkened sky, whispering words they had never spoken before. Something had shifted, not just in Jerusalem, not just in Judea. Something had shifted in the entire world, and almost no one understood what it meant yet. The disciples of Jesus scattered. They locked themselves behind closed doors, speaking in hushed voices, convinced that the same authorities who had crucified their teacher were already coming for them. Peter, who had walked on water and declared Jesus the Son of God, now sat in silence, haunted by the memory of denying him 3 times before the rooster crowed. The religious leaders who had orchestrated the execution were not celebrating. They were nervous. Rumors were already moving through the narrow streets of Jerusalem like fire through dry grass. People were talking about the darkness, about the earthquake, about the tombs that had reportedly opened near the city walls. The high priests went directly to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate with an urgent request. They wanted soldiers stationed at the tomb. They wanted the stone sealed. They had heard what Jesus had said about rising after 3 days, and they were determined to make sure that story ended in silence and stone. 3 days passed. Roman guards stood watch through the cold Jerusalem nights, torches burning, weapons ready. And then before the sun rose on the 3rd morning, something happened that none of them could explain or report without risking their own lives. When the women who followed Jesus arrived at the tomb just after dawn, they found the enormous stone rolled away. The burial cloths were still there, folded neatly, but the body was gone. The guards had fled. Within hours, the news was spreading through every corner of the city. The tomb was empty. And then came the reports that shook everything even further. People were claiming they had seen Jesus alive, not in dreams, not in visions, but walking, speaking, eating, standing in rooms and on roads in broad daylight. More than 500 people would eventually claim to have seen him after his death. The authorities had no answer, the soldiers had no explanation, and the world would never be the same again. What happened next defied every political and military logic of the ancient world. A small group of terrified, uneducated men and women from a remote corner of the Roman Empire began to travel across the known world carrying a single message. They were beaten, they were imprisoned, they were executed in some of the most brutal ways the Roman Empire could devise, and still the message spread. From Jerusalem it moved to Antioch, then to Greece, then to Rome itself, the very heart of the empire that had tried to silence it. It crossed into Africa, into Asia, into regions that Roman maps had never even charted. Within 3 centuries, the faith built on the resurrection of one man had reached every corner of the known world and transformed the most powerful empire on earth from within. 2,000 years later, historians, archaeologists, theologians, and skeptics are still debating what actually happened in Jerusalem during those 3 days. The empty tomb remains one of the most examined and argued events in all of human history. Was it the greatest mystery ever recorded, or the greatest miracle? Was it a story that grew in the telling, or an event so real and so undeniable that ordinary people chose death rather than deny it? Whatever conclusion history leads you toward, the events of those days reshaped civilization, rewrote calendars, inspired empires, and continue to echo through every corner of the modern world. The story did not end at the cross. In many ways, That is precisely where it began.